One Sci-Fi Podcast.
Right, hello there. This is episode 196 of the Solar One Sci-Fi Podcast. I'm Michael Ball. I'm not joined by Martin, the demigod of science fiction this week. I'm joined by the other demigod, and that is Malcolm Patterson.
Hello.
Hello, Malcolm. And this week we've got a very interesting special, and this is actually thanks to Facebook. I follow a Facebook page called Deep Space Nine Lovers as a big Deep Space Nine fan, as most people will know, and so is Malcolm. And recently, Todd E. Slayton has been on the actual Facebook group, going on about lots of things he's done in the past. He's been involved with Deep Space Nine. He was Stuart Lofton's stand-in. He's been all sorts of characters in the show over the years, lots of sort of extra work. And I know already that you've got lots of stories to share with the world.
Oh, yeah.
So thank you for coming aboard. So, Todd, how are you?
I'm excellent. Thanks for asking.
Thank you.
I appreciate you asking me to join. I actually had no idea that the Facebook page was out there. I see some of the stuff, so I just let me look on here. And then I was like, oh, well, they might be interested in this. I had no idea that it would be this big of a reaction to me just posting pictures and telling a few stories.
I think that you'll find that a lot of people like us are fascinated with people who are actually involved with the show itself. I mean, Deep Space Nine was such an incredible series. It had such an impact on a lot of people's lives. So it's always great to know people who knew the actors, knew how it worked, and also wearing some of those bizarre costumes that you had over the years. Like you've been dressed up as Cardassians, as Breen, and you were the first Vulcan of color on Deep
Space Nine. Let's not get
Deep Space Nine.
Upset. Yeah.
But I was reading up on it, and apparently you're on around about 80 episodes of the entire series.
Yeah, probably about 80, and involved with some of the time. For me as a stand-in with Sirach when I first started, he wasn't working. We have those time limitations with him. So they had these days. It's just as crazy as Hollywood is. It's called a 10/20 day.
Right.
And when it said 10/20 on the clock for me, or on my time, on the call sheet the day before, that means I had to come in and answer the phones.
Right.
So there's a lot of days that I was on set, a part of the whole franchise, but my job was hustling actors, answering phones, and doing production more so than actually that. But my first day after I got hired, see, that's an interesting story. I back then I had dreadlocks too, and I cut them off, and I got a call to play a refugee on Voyager, to audition for a refugee on Voyager, of all places. Now, I don't know if you guys know that Star Trek Deep Space Nine.
You were right next to each other, weren't you? You literally
right
on the
across
set. Yeah, I know all about it. You worked right. You literally cross over, and you'd be with the actors from Voyager, wouldn't you?
Yeah. So I come from, I did a movie with Chris Farley and comedy and stuff like that. So I had been watching Deep Space Nine on Sundays after church. My dad's a pastor, so not that necessarily that I'd go to church, but they would watch Deep Space. And as a young actor, I was a big Avery Brooks fan, first of all, because we used to watch
Spencer for Hire
and Hawk, A Man Called Hawk. And that's Avery. Hawk that's Avery, the best. You can come to saying, "Hey, what's Avery like?" He's like Hawk.
And,
He just has that presence that just like it's frightening. But in the same, it's very securing to see a strong man. You know what I mean? In his own. And is powerful. So anyway, I go to this Voyager interview, and I just shaved my head, but I had these rings on the top of my head from where the dreads were. Long story short, these people are there with missing limbs. I mean, missing limbs. They had like ears missing. They had lumps on their head, and they're just picking everybody out. All I had was a dirty shirt on because it was a refugee. So they're picking everybody out, and all these people were extras who had worked that series of Star Trek and Deep Space. They were constantly in that loop. I didn't know them at the time, and they were like, "Oh, these people here, they're looking." Let me back up. So the door opens up. This guy comes out in a suit and tie, and this lady walks out, and they just keep looking at us at the audition, keep looking, and I'm sitting there just quiet, and everybody starts talking. Long story short, they came up to me and they asked me. They said, "Hi, my name is Bobby Della Santina and BC Cameron." Bobby was our our producer, our line producer, our co-producer, and BC was our first AD. And
Right.
they said, we know you're here for the Voyager interview, but we were wondering, you have a striking resemblance to one of the cast members on the show. And
Oh, okay.
I said, Sirach? And they're like, yeah, you know the show? I said, absolutely. They said, well,
Brilliant.
they said, we have an audition on Monday, and we'd like for you to come audition. And I was like, okay. Do you want me to stay? You know, I'm broke. I'm just brand new star. I'm catering, and I'll sleep
You
right
just
here
do
on
it.
the
Yeah, just
couch.
gonna
Yeah,
go with
I'll
it.
stay here.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, yeah.
Friday, Monday at 8. I'll be right here. And they laughed. So when I got to the audition, I was the only one there. So
Okay.
so I got the job. But the part of going into the makeup portion is my first day as a on the show as a regular. I was a Klingon,
Oh,
and
wow.
I didn't know anything. I knew I had to go to the Paramount lot, the parking, da da da. Well, I just started following people. We're there at 2 a.m., right? Keep in mind, we got there at 2 a.m. And I'm just a chameleon, I guess, a natural producer. So I didn't ask no questions. I just started following
Just
people,
went along with it.
found out
Yeah.
where to go. Then
Right.
I started talking to people, found out what was going on. It was an episode, we call it, it was Worf's episode, basically. Michael Dorn's episode. It was kind of an alternate reality episode, and LeVar Burton was director.
Is it Shattered Mirror? That was season 4 with Worf.
Possibly, it was like one of our
That was the
first.
Mirror Universe episode season 4, and Worf started in season 4. So I'd
Yes.
imagine it's Shattered Mirror, which was a good
Okay.
episode.
So it was the
Okay.
first. It was the first episode of that season,
Right.
and it
Oh
was
no,
a
The Way of the
20.
Warrior was the first episode of the season.
Then that's the one, and it
Okay,
was a
sorry, yeah.
21-hour workday for me. I have
Wow.
never done that, and full makeup and full regatta. But what you got to keep in mind is we had a crew call of 8 a.m., I believe, that morning. So by the time the crew got there, I was already 6 hours on the clock.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and I didn't know certain things. Like, I don't know if you guys know, but there's penalties for, like, big penalties for not sending us to lunch 6 hours. They have to call a meal penalty.
But yeah, you have to have a
Smoke,
limitation,
yeah,
and there are certain
smoke
rules you have
on
to follow.
set,
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
all this stuff. But we, after a certain hour, which is 16 hours, you get paid a full day's pay for every hour on the hour. That includes meal penalties, that includes smoke, and that includes all that stuff. I had no idea. So coming from a catering job, when I got that first day's check, I had to go show my good pastor father and go, "Hey, Dad, somebody screwed up," because it was a lot of money. It was more money than I made in
So
2
you
weeks
were
at the
quite
time.
pleased about that
Oh,
for
I
that.
was happy
You were
about it.
happy with that.
Very
I mean,
happy.
were you familiar with Star Trek before you got onto this, or did you sort of go into
Oh
it
no, I used to always.
blind? And
I go back to the original,
so
Shatner
you
days.
know what a Klingon was, you know how
Yeah,
their perspective of how they act and things like that, and
yeah,
that's amazing. I mean, because I know that Michael Westmore was one of the main makeup artists, and I think he did an
amazing. Yeah,
incredible job. And
yeah.
I remember reading a thing while how he got these different kind of he'd look on nature books for aspects of different creatures and how he can make them replicate into an alien with a humanoid with the
hmm
scales or
Well,
whatever. And
his junior also was very much a part of that, and still is. We're good friends on Facebook, and he was at the time while we were in makeup. On this side was the makeup lab. On this side there was a little office, and Michael Jr. was in there, and he was sculpting. Like, I'll never forget when we did the at one time they were filming Voyager, Deep Space, and I want to say Insurrection, possibly, all at the
that
same
would be
time.
about 1998.
So what's the one after that? It
Something.
was a big
It
green,
was Nemesis was the
not green.
last one.
Was it Nemesis with
Nemesis was the
Patrick
last one
Stewart?
with the Romulans and the Remans.
Okay.
Insurrection was the one with the Bacall, the Bakor, and it was
What was
the
the
planet.
Borgs?
The Borg was First Contact, which is 1996.
No, there was anyway. We had all these heads that were claymated that Michael Jr. was making for whatever particular movie that was at the time, and that was fascinating to see that whole process that you're talking about of just sculpting and creating
But they
this.
must be so busy. But at that point, they were having
Oh,
like feature films every 2 or 3 years, plus 2 concurrent Star Trek series at the same time. And I
mhm,
mean, it's funny. We were talking last week about the fact that a lot of current Star Trek series they only make 10 episodes in the season, and it's going
mhm.
to be like a 2 year kind of turnaround to get it from start to finish. Back in the days when you were working on it, they were making literally 52 episodes a year with the 2 Star
Yes.
Trek series. They were just banging them out, and they were so well made. There's so much in those episodes. For the time that they did it was amazing. And you
Well, we had
guys,
some of the amazing writers. I'll tell you, some
Ronald
amazing
D.
writers. That's an
Moore, and
understatement.
yeah,
Yep.
I mean, I just think that the writing was
Ira.
just
I
so.
mean,
Oh, yeah, exactly. I mean, it's a fantastic.
Ira's a whole nother guy. That's one of the coolest guys I've ever met in my life. Him and Mr. B, I swear.
Oh no, I'm
Just
actually amazed at just how well it was. I mean, the funny thing about Deep Space Nine was how it started off as a great show from the beginning, but it was in the shadow of the Next Generation,
mhm.
and it just evolved into this wonderful political aspect of this environment, which was different from all the other Star Trek series. But I also think it's funny that, like I said, I know that you guys you saw the Voyager cast quite a lot. Was there a kind of like a bit of what's the words where one cast would be sort of like going against the cast saying, oh, our series is doing this and we're doing that, and then the Voyager lot would be saying, oh yeah, but we've got the Borg and you've got the Jem'Hadar, and you know what I mean? I always wanted there's a bit of
No, actually,
competition, you know what I mean?
not really, because we all like. Well, that being said, a lot of the extras would jump back and forth between the shows, so we had that, friendship and camaraderie. And like I said, we filmed right across the street, so we couldn't go to the bathroom without running into each other. There's a funny story is, um, Robert Beltran and Garrett used to like to play guitars. I don't know if people know
Oh,
that,
did
and
they really?
they would
Garrett
sit
Wang and
out.
Robert Beltran. Okay,
Yeah,
I didn't
we'd
know
sit
that.
out, and sometimes Robert would be at Garrett's trailer, and sometimes Garrett's would be at Robert's trailer. So myself a lot, John Bennett, who passed, and Sirach every now and then would come, and we'd just hang out, and we'd be at, hang out in one of their trailers. So one day, I didn't know anything. I learned a quick lesson. I just opened the trailer door. It was supposed to be Garrett's door, and there was Jerry Ryan standing there.
Really?
It was her first day on the show,
Oh
and
no.
they had given her Garrett's trailer, and I had no idea. And thank God she was dressed, because I just busted, and I'm like, oh my God, because I knew who she was because of all the
Yeah.
hype and everything else. I just hadn't seen her on or met her, and I'm like, oh
Yeah,
my
it,
God,
it
I'm
was
so
quite hyped actually, and
yeah,
yeah, because she would have been around in your fifth season of Deep Space
yeah,
Nine. That's right.
yeah,
Because I'm
and
quite. So Malcolm, obviously you're in the background there. What questions have you got there for
I
Todd?
don't know. I'm just enjoying listening to the stories, to be fair.
oh, we could go
Yeah,
all
no, I
day.
just can't get over. I just can't imagine opening a trailer door and seeing Jerry Ryan stood
Well,
right in front of me.
the best part of that is that I was like freaked out, and I go, "I'm sorry." She goes, "No, no, come in, come in, come in," because I was in my Starfleet uniform for deep space, and she's like, "No, come in and sit down," and I was like, "Whoa, I don't want to intrude," and everything else. Long story short, she got me on the episode she did with The Rock. Um,
Oh, 10 Suckling. It's a hard name. Season 5, 10 Suckling or something.
it was
It's something like that. I
I don't
can't.
know, yeah, but it
Yeah,
was
I know
her
the
first
episode.
big
It was with
episode,
the
yeah,
Rock, and it was the wrestling one, and
right,
Jeffrey Combs is in it as Pink.
yep,
Because obviously
Jeff, no,
Jeffrey
Jeff's
Combs is
great
normally,
too.
yeah, he's normally in DS9, but he made an appearance
Yeah.
in Voyager. So, oh, that's pretty cool. That's brilliant.
Yeah, so it was because of her I got that, and I got to know The Rock. Then
Dwayne
I'm right
Johnson, isn't
behind
it?
him. Yeah, Dwayne Johnson's what he told us to call him back then. But
Okay.
but at any rate, I'm sitting directly behind him for the whole episode, because literally I said it on the page, but the producers called me over because they knew I had, was experienced with makeup and everything else. But
Uh-huh.
my job was to babysit him. My job
Really?
they didn't want to look for him. They wanted me to know where he was, corral him in, and make sure he wrapped in 8 hours. And
Oh,
we did it.
wow.
Yeah, we
That's
got him
it.
out of there in 8 hours. So that was an interesting crossover with the Voyager cast. Then one real quick story
Go on.
regarding what you're talking about, the three different entities at one time. We had the movie Voyager and Deep Space. Well, we also had tour groups on the Paramount lot.
Okay.
And anytime a Klingon's walking around, or Borg, or even Starfleet are walking around, the tour guides, they pull up right in front of us, and they stop right. And hey, we have a Star Trek Klingon. And a lot of times, we go over there. We're actors, so we'll go over and take pictures and get in the cart and everything else like that. Well, I'm walking, and I'm just not feeling it. I was one of two background artists on this show. It was a Klingon show.
Mm.
They're shooting the movie right on the same lot, and here comes the tourist, the little Universal Studios looking tour tram. That's the word. Pulls up, and next thing I know, a golf cart comes speeding up, slams on its brakes in front of the tourist cart, slides sideways. Michael Doran, dressed halfway as Worf, is driving. Patrick Stewart, number one, I mean, you know, the captain is sitting in the driver's or in the passenger seat, and in the back is Jonathan Frakes dressed up in his uniform.
Oh,
and
God.
then there's me. So Michael pulls up, he slides in, and he goes, "Klingon, get in, let's go!" And I just jumped on the back, and we
You jumped
took
on the
off.
back. Oh,
Yeah, I jumped
brilliant.
on the right next to Jonathan, because Jonathan was a director on
He
our
directed
show.
First Contact, but he directed some of your shows as well.
Yeah,
on
he did a
DS9,
lot
so
on our show, and then
yeah.
on hiatus, I ended up working other shows, and one of the shows, I believe it was Angel, because I used to stunt double for this guy named Gunn on the show, and Jonathan was directing that.
Yeah.
So they were doing this car setup, right? And I know how it works. So now I just go and lay up against a tree. I got 6 hours to do nothing. So I literally fell asleep in the park in North Hollywood and woke up to Judy Brown, who was our script supervisor on one side. And I'm all, "Hey, Judy." She's like, "Oh, how you doing, honey?" And I turn over this way. And there's Jonathan laying right next to me. He's all, he's all, "You look too comfortable." So that was a lot of fun, just being able to have that, you know, take that from one set to another, that friendship and that energy.
I think what I've seen over the years is that, I mean, I know that the Next Generation cast are almost like family. They're very, very close. And, you know, I think that's to a degree as well. In what I've seen of Deep Space Nine, you know, the cast all got on very well. They had a good laugh. They worked hard, but they got a lot of fun out of it as well as the hours that took. And obviously, you know, a lot of them with the makeup when they were coming in. I think they used to come in like 4 a.m. in the morning to do the makeup with Michael Westbourne and all that stuff. I mean, it's because, I mean, you were actually known, even though you weren't that well seen, as Thot Gore, the Breen. In, I think it was the last season. So obviously he used to gurgle and but that was you. Yeah, that was your kind of main character, I suppose, on Deep Space Nine. Do you wish they ever took the helmet off so you could actually see your face? Or
no, not for the series. I had to, you know, it was such a and I had done, mind you, I had done tons and tons of makeup, but when they put that helmet on you, I mean, your vision is like just right here. And
it must be really minimal because you can't see any sign of where your eyes are.
It's very minimal.
Do you stumble around and walk into things and things like that? Is it kind of like,
you know, the set pretty good, but it would be very easy to do that. It would be very easy
miss a step or something, or yeah.
So if you notice, they had me a lot with Wei Yun. Well, me and Jeffrey were together.
Yes, in the scenes in the Dominion. Yeah.
Because
he starts with such a laugh, Jeffrey Combs.
Jeffrey's great. He worked with us on CSI up in Big Bear.
Oh, so you do it from that as well. Oh, that's so okay. I didn't know you doing it from CSI as well. But I just think it was kind of like, you know, I've met Denise Crosby, Tasha Yar, in a convention in the UK, and she was lovely. And it is kind of always amazing to see the actors that you've seen from these shows and actually interact with them in real life. So I think it's really cool. I mean, I saw that you have some lovely pictures of with Brock Peters, obviously Cyril Lofton. What were they all like? I mean, did you have any main character or main actors in the show that you're best buddies with, or did you just get on all generally together?
Well, everybody would tell you, including Sirach, my best friend was Brock Peters.
Yeah, I saw. That's why I brought up his name. I saw that he. Yeah, I mean,
what happened was this is a very touching story, but it's very cool. I grew up with a brother who has a handicap, who was injured, and it's a long story, but he's fully, you know, an invalid. Avery knew the story, and I didn't really know Brock. I knew of Brock and his work. Sure. And Avery, if you remember, Brock didn't come back in until like season 6.
Yes.
And the reason why is sorry, my series.
That's right. Mine does it all the time.
I know. So Brock had a cadaver bone put in his neck. He had cancer, and they actually went into the front of his neck and they put a cadaver bone in his neck. And Avery comes up to me. He goes, "Mr. Slayton," he goes, "I got a job for you." And I said, "Okay, Mr. B, what's that?" He said, "Brock Peters. You know Brock Peters, right?" And I said, Yeah, Joseph Sisko. He's coming in. He's going to be working with us from now on. He said, "I want you by him. If he goes left, you go 2 steps in front of him. Dig? If he goes back, you 2 steps behind him. You dig?" He said, "But you are to be his shadow. I don't want people grabbing him or anything." Okay. So what happened was Brock walks on set like a movie star, you know, and that's something else we could get into. There's stage there's TV, and then there's movie stars, and there's a whole different energy that they all bring. Some of the stage acting was some of the most amazing actors, like Wei Yun, you're talking about.
Yeah.
Freaking Casey. We had Casey Biggs was
Casey
Scar.
Biggs, yeah, he was
He was
brilliant.
Scar on The Lion King. Came right off The Lion King and took over that role. Then we had Jeffrey too. Jeffrey was amazing. JG, forget it. I've seen
JG Hertzler, yeah. Oh God, yeah, he was
I've
brilliant.
seen JG, and I know I'm going off topic, but I
Go
saw
on.
this one scene, and we're all Klingons, and we're all there, and that's when they became a part of the Federation, and it was just hectic, long day, and people were forgetting their lines left and right. And
Okay.
I seen this. I've never seen a film or a TV actor do this. Is something from the stage because they don't have you can't cut. So JG would want to go home, and so what he would do is he would look at the actor, and you could tell immediately they're lost, and he would turn this way. He would turn this way, and he would deliver their line off camera, and then he'd come back and he would do his line on camera, and then the actor, but he would give them their lines. And
You'd actually help out. Yeah, he's just that way.
yeah,
He's so
keep us
sharp with it.
going. Keep us going. So anyway, going back to Brock,
Yeah.
Brock pulls in, and he was cool. Brock has a copper cane, He had his Dolce Gabbana glasses on, and he had a man sash. Now they're popular, but it was a leather man stash, right? And so Avery introduces us the whole thing and whatever have you, and he tells Brock that Mr. Slayton's going to be reading with you, he's going to be eating with you, he's going to be your right hand. Anything you need, he's going to be there. And I'm like, yeah. Avery looks at me, and he looks back at Brock, and he grabs Brock's man stash and he puts it on my shoulder, like across me. He goes, "Now you understand?" And that was it. Me and Brock. I've been to events with Brock. I've before Brock passed.
Yeah.
True story. I got to eat dinner with as guest of Steven Spielberg, his wife, his son, myself, and Brock.
Wow.
And that was it. It was at a sushi place called Sushi Roku. And that was quite an experience. That was amazing. But with Brock, I got to go places outside of the set because he did so much. You know, he would do events at like Royce Hall at UCLA. He would do, Henry Fonda. They would just have him come sing like Lost in the Stars or whatever have you. I have pictures with Stevie Wonder because of Brock. And he just, he became my son's godfather. He used to call me in public his surrogate son, which was just really, really great. And so me and Brock did a lot outside of Deep Space together.
Because I've even seen. I knew that Sirach and Avery got on very well. They seem to be quite close as well during the show.
Mm-hmm.
So it's nice to know that other people involved also had things outside of just production where you can actually socialize, you can meet other people, and things like that. I mean, how did you feel when the series was starting to come to a close in season 7? You knew that the end was coming. You didn't, how a lot of shows get cancelled and they get thrown off and they don't have any. You have time to prepare to finish it. Did you? Right. Was it very mixed feelings when you knew that the end was coming? Or
for sure. And I think for me as a young father, I had 2 kids on Star Trek the first 2 years. And so I was a young father, and that was frightening. It was really scary. But my dad always got me in the cars and whatnot, so I would always be hustling. And it was only like a month or 2 after Deep Space that I got the call for CSI and walked on the CSI. And the same thing, I not doubled, but I was a stand-in for Gary Dourdan.
Wow.
And the same story's true with Gary. We're still very, very close to this day. My kids call him Uncle Gary.
Was there? I mean, obviously you went to CSI, but when DS9 finished, there was 2 more years of Voyager after. Was there ever an option where you could have actually gone over to that set and done some more stuff over there?
Definitely, but they were on hiatus. You got to remember, we all wrapped at the same time, and before they came back, I was already called over to CSI.
Oh, okay, that's the option you took.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
That's really good.
Yeah, and that was cool. And I'm glad I did, because the CSI opened up a lot, and I still have that connection with Star Trek and the Voyager people. Like, I don't talk to Garrett or any of those guys regularly, Beltran, but if I see him, we're hugging.
Yeah, I mean, you're obviously there for each other. You can, I think that's the nature that over years, you tend to spend less time with people that you knew because you're all moving on. You've got your own respective lives, which is fair enough. I suppose really another question is, you played so many aliens. I mean, I saw another picture of you as a Uridian the other day. I mean, did you have a favorite alien makeup that you were involved?
Do you want to know the truth?
Go on.
You don't want to know the truth?
What?
Shrek.
Really?
Yes. You know why?
Oh, go on.
The Shrek just boop, put a little glue around your eyes and some makeup. You're done. Oh, and the hands. You got to put the little hands on, and that's it. And then they put this big, bulky, super cool, like comfortable, I should say, suit on you, and you just sit around walking around all day. You don't have all the prosthetic pieces. That was one of the hardest things because we would do days and days in a row, like of you know, an episode, and we're doing, like I said, every day was overtime. If you're an alien, you're in overtime. So I remember one particular night, it was late, and I think I was a Cardassian. And one
Okay.
of my dear friends, makeup artist, who also passed years ago, was a gentleman named we called him Dr. Dave Q, Kwashnik, Dave Kwashnik, and we sat down. He would always, it was like our thing. He would always do my makeup and take it off. And so this particular night, it was like after, it was like a Thursday, so we still had another night to go. And I remember we sat down, and Dave just dipped his makeup brush in some alcohol, and he went like this. He just put it right here on my forehead to break the little glue seal, and I just go,
Oh,
because it was just so sensitive. You know, people don't realize that. So we would have to get skincare work done and stuff like that. We had some great makeup artists that would bring in lotions and different creams that we could use. But yeah, it was a little rough on your skin after a while.
I was
So
wondering
that's
that. I mean, I think of people like Michael Dorn who had the makeup. He was the actor who actually appeared in the most
Michael.
episodes.
Michael and me don't get the same makeup treatment. So
No, I mean, is it?
no,
Oh, okay. It's not the
no.
same. You have different.
No, I forget what it is. They put on us, they put like 1022 or some crazy name of this glue. I mean, it's like model cement glue we're glued in. Oh no, Michael, he got spirit gum, so he just peels his right off half the time when we're sitting there at the end of the day before we even wrap. Michael's got his uniform on, but you didn't hear that from me. I
No,
mean,
but I did know. I did know that
two different.
one of the things he said to actually go back to the DS9 or to Star Trek rather
Mm,
is I did not want to be in the makeup chair like I was on the Next Generation. And I think that
no,
maybe there are ways that they put it on just quicker, just because he was sick and tired of having the stuff on his head all the time. So
yeah,
it's
oh yeah, definitely. But we didn't get that option. And like I said, my first day was that episode with him. And here's a funny story, and then I want to tell you a story about Brock again before it gets too far.
go
Remind you,
on, go on.
it's from the Far Beyond the Stars episode, just
Okay.
amazing. So we got there that morning, like I said, we had been there since 2. It's now like 10 a.m. LeVar is freaking out. LeVar Burton, he's like, "Where's Michael? Where's Michael?" And LeVar has I was just telling, LeVar has what do you call it? Kind of a known to be kind of a cheapskate when it comes to his clothes.
Is he?
Like
Okay.
that's what the rumor is. And so he's wearing overalls all day, and they have a big a five studded star in the back. And I know where those come from because my wife works in retail. So long story short, we get Michael finally comes to set. He doesn't have his wig on. He doesn't have the top of his uniform on because underneath the top, I think you've seen him in some of his pictures, were just suspenders on those like leatherish pants, pleather pants. So Michael's not even dressed, and we've been on set, you know, since 8 a.m. with LeVar barking us, move over here, do this, do
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
So I'll never forget. Michael comes in the set, and LeVar goes, "You're not even dressed." And Michael looks at his overalls, and he goes, "Well, how's your mama and them, country boy?" Oh my God! And the whole set just fell
Well,
out.
they just like all fell. I can imagine you like
Oh, we
just
were
like chaos
laughing.
after that.
Yeah,
Oh,
because he was, you know, wearing the overalls, barking orders at everybody. And we were all stressed. We're all stressed. And basically, Michael was saying, "Don't stress me,
yeah,
LeVar.
but
We'll
he
get it
strikes me as a
done."
very funny guy, actually, from what I've seen of him. I mean, it's like
Michael's pretty quiet, though, to be honest. He's reserved. Like, it took a while for him to warm up to me.
oh,
You
did it?
know,
Okay,
yeah, it really did. And I think the first person that I really got close to, other than Sirach, was probably Sadig and Anah.
really? Well, they were together
Mhm.
at that point, weren't they, as a couple?
Not really.
I know they. I know they got
Really.
to. Well, okay, well, I know at one point
Yeah,
they
yeah,
were.
we
Yeah,
won't get
all
into
right.
that
Yeah, all
one,
right.
but
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Let's move on. Yeah, okay.
And so then it was me and Mr. B were close because I had to, you know, I work with him a lot because of Sirach's time on set. You know, a lot of
Mm.
times I would jump in and do the cold readings, and then they would set up the camera with me and Avery, and then Sirach would come in, and that was like one of the questions that they had about the use of the N word and
Hmm.
behind Lost in the Stars because when I
Yep.
read it
Yes.
with Avery, I did it. And Avery just looked at me. I said, "It feels right, Mr. B. This is 1950, whatever it is." I said, "They would have been using the word this and that." And Ira was right there, and him and Avery talked, and he came back and said, "Do it." Told Sirach to do it.
I remember
So
when I watched that scene, I was quite surprised that it was actually featured. But I
Yeah,
can
well, it
understand, given the time period, that it would have been featured.
Yeah, and so my favorite story, I think, that is by far my favorite episode. That was a pleasure to work on. I was Avery's assistant and Brock's assistant in that movie, and doubled Sirach and played in the background.
Really?
So I was very busy. Avery had a stand-in named John Bennett, and John was very adamant about moving on and doing his own thing and not being a stand-in. So the last year, John, to answer that question about,
Yeah.
preparing, John basically was doing stunts. He was working on Moesha. At the time, we had Moesha, Little Brandy. We had Clueless. We had Voyager, Deep Space. We had like 8 big shows. We even had Becker on our lot at the same time.
Yeah, because it was was it Terry Farrell went to Becker
when she left. She
yeah.
went to the Becker. Anyway, so I was very involved in that episode. So we did the scene where Brock is playing the preacher.
Yep.
And Avery and Cassidy or Penny Ann are walking down the street, and he pops out of the dark, and he goes, "Brother Benny," whatever have you, and he reaches up and does the ear and the blood and everything else like that.
Yeah, I remember the scene. Yeah.
Well, it was a long day, and Brock couldn't do it, and it was just the difference of leaning back like this far versus where the light was, like right here, versus the camera. And he couldn't do it, physically couldn't do it. And Avery's like, we just didn't know what to do. And I said, "I know what to do." And Avery's like, "What?" So I went over and told Avery. I talked to Brock, and then I went to the ADs, and because Avery's directing, so he gives a final approval.
Of course,
I told the AD, I said, "Give me a walkie." And she goes, "Okay," because she's there. She was there in the conversation. I said, "Give me a walkie-talkie." I said, "When you guys want Brock, do 2 flashes on the walkie, and then 1 flash. And I'll walk him out, and I'll walk him in." So literally what happened in that scene is I turned around and got on all 4s on my hands and knees, and Brock is sitting on my rump. He's sitting on my butt.
Right.
And so they do the whole thing and whatever have you. And I'm looking at the walkie in the dark. I can't see nothing. So they flash the thing. And mind you, there's hundreds of extras who are watching us set this up, the crew and everybody. They don't know what's really going on. So they flashed it. We did the take. Brock comes out. We go back. We do it again. And then this time Avery comes over and he says, "Come out slower." And I said, "Okay." So they flashed the walkie and I just came out real slow. They did the scene. They cut, and that was a wrap on Brock. And so when they cut, I had to get up off the ground and everything. And Avery's like, "Mr. Brock Peters, ladies and gentlemen, that's the wrap on Mr. Brock Peters." And everybody's like, cheering and everything. And I come walking out of the back, clapping.
Sorted.
Yeah, just clapping. And he goes, "Hey, Mr. Todd Slayton."
Hey.
It was great. It was great. It was very, very emotional, as you can tell a little bit. And
No,
other than that, on that episode, Avery invited my mom. It was her 50th
Oh, I
birthday.
think you had a picture that you shared on Facebook.
So
Yeah, I saw that.
The crazy part is we ate lunch on the street on it's called New York Street. And so there was catering set up all over, and there was a stage because they do concerts and stuff there. And out of nowhere, Avery goes up on stage, and "We have a very special guest today, Mrs. Slayton." You should have seen it. So he called her up there, and the whole cast and crew sang happy birthday to her.
Oh, isn't that
That's
good?
the kind of dude Avery is. Yeah, just amazing.
Yeah, happy memories. Well, I think we're going to wrap things up soon. The only simple reason I'd like to talk for another hour, but we've only got another 3 minutes on Zoom. So any last sort of last comments about working on the series that you want to share in just 2 minutes sort of window? Anything else you want to say about your experience in general?
Well, again, I just thank God. I was very fortunate to be a part of such a series, and I said it before. I say things as they come, and the truth is, we felt though that was the Black Star Trek, and I don't know why it's so hard for people to understand. That's how we felt about it. We had a black captain, we had a black crew. A lot of the behind the scenes crew were black men who had been in the industry forever. Still in the industry, Ralph Johnson. So I felt as a young black man, I felt very honored by that. And I'm not all about race and everything else.
No, but just the perspective of what it was.
That was very, very honoring to me coming from a small town out in Hemet, California, which is Riverside County, to go to be accepted in such this large world. I don't know. I was just honored. I look back at sometimes I have tons of scripts, I have hats, I have so much memorabilia. It just makes me proud. Just makes me smile. That's all I can really.
Listen, Todd, thank you so much for coming on board. We've really, I mean, Malcolm's just been watching the whole time, but that's fine.
Sorry, Malcolm. I'll come back. I mean,
right.
trust me, I got years more stories if you guys.
I mean,
want
yeah, I think we should definitely have a part 2 of this. Maybe soon we'll continue, because there's just not enough here. There's more to dig into.
I haven't even talked about Louise Fletcher or Marco Limo or any of those.
Oh God! Well, actually, we've got an option here. We can actually. I tell you what. Let's get you back in the next couple of weeks. Okay. We'll do a part 2 if you're free for that.
Oh, absolutely.
And I'd love to hear about Louise Fletcher and Marco Limo, because they're
great.
Brilliant actors. And Todd, thank you very much. Thank you, Malcolm.
Thanks for having me.
We'll see you next week on the Solar One Sci-Fi Podcast. Live long and prosper.
Cool.